Hi, everybody. Welcome again to Traveling in a New Vegan World virtual online summit. My name is Jason McGregor, and I'm the owner of Vegan Vacations. And I'm very excited today to be chatting with Karen Lang, a self-love coach, who's going to be talking with me about traveling with allergies and providing us with some top tips for how to travel safely and securely if you suffer or your friends suffer from allergies. Welcome, Karen.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So I'm going to share the screen and you can get started.
Awesome. So like Jason said, my name is Karen. I am a former matchmaker and dating coach for vegetarians and vegans, and I am now a self-love coach. I have been plant-based for over 18 years, and I have had a deadly food allergy for almost 30 years now. And that allergy is very, very uncommon. I am deadly allergic to sunflower anything. So if any of you are watching and are allergic to sunflowers, please get in touch with me because I would love to talk to you, especially if you're allergic to sunflowers and vegan, because we could really help each other out here. So thank you so much for having me, Jason. This is the first time that I share my allergy and travel story. So I'm really excited to get started, and we can go to the next slide. So I kind of just wanted to share my journey of traveling with allergies because it's something that I've struggled with, pretty much my entire life. And being allergic to something that is not on the top 10 list of common allergens is very, very difficult, because it means that in most places that I go, people have never heard of my allergy, and it's not so obvious of which meals actually contain sunflower products, because sunflower products are hidden in so much stuff. So, regardless of that, I've had good and bad experiences, and my motivation today is really to inspire you to travel, even if you have allergies, okay? Because for the longest time, I didn't travel to far off places because I was too scared. And I'm so glad that I decided to get over it. So I, because of my allergies and because I'm vegan, I mostly eat out at home. I make a lot of my own food. So I'm kind of used to checking labels, preparing stuff ahead of time. And so I just wanted to kind of share the kind of trips that I've done. I've really done all kinds of different trips. So I've done 4 cross-country trips to California and Canada. It was amazing. We camped along the way pretty much like every night. We traveled with our dogs. And I basically prepared food ahead of time as much as I could. And when we would run out of food, we would stop at a local grocery store and stock up on more food. So we would cook when we were camping. We would buy some pre-made stuff. So we made it work, right? Restaurants weren't really an option so much because we had our dogs and we were traveling. And so it was just easier to prepare stuff in advance. So those kinds of trips, like when you're doing a road trip, it's very, very easy to prepare in advance. So that's always what I recommend when you have food allergies. Just saves you the trouble for, again, these kinds of trips. So my first bad experience with traveling with allergies, it was my very, very first time in Mexico. I had never been there before. I had never been anywhere like that before. I had only traveled in Canada and US. And this was like a really, really long time ago. So a lot has changed since then. But I did have a bad experience because I wasn't as knowledgeable as I am today about how to be your own advocate. There wasn't Google Translate. There wasn't like all the things that there are today. So I did have a bad experience. It was very, very difficult for me to eat there because of the language barrier. So the first half of the trip, I barely ate anything, but then halfway through, I found a restaurant. There was like several restaurants on the resort. I did manage to find one restaurant where the chef like completely understood, and he ended up making me a bunch of meals like from scratch that were off the menu. So it ended up well, but it was stressful for sure. I do tons of like weekend getaways. I'm a huge proponent of weekend getaways for everyone, for self-care purposes. And then in October, I went to Italy. And so this was my first European experience. This was my first experience where I was like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm scared because of my allergies. Again, I really held back for a long time to travel because of my allergies. But I was turning 40 and I was like, you know what? I want to do something really big. My husband was also turning 40. He turned 40 recently as well. So we wanted to go on a big trip. And I decided, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. And I am so glad that I decided to do that. And I'm going to share some tips that were specific to this trip of how I prepared, because I truly believe that having a great experience is all about preparing ahead of time. Okay, it's all about the planning. And I have a trip to Costa Rica coming up next month. So that is going to be my first time in Central America. I mean, other than Mexico. But super like really excited about that. I'm going to be renting a villa with some friends, and I am going to be working with a private chef. So those types of vacations where you can rent houses and hire a chef is always going to be like really it's going to save you a lot of trouble. So, and I'll talk a bit more about my Italy trip in a minute, but for Italy, I did half and half. For Costa Rica, I'm going to kind of do the same thing as well. And again, it's all about the planning. Like I've had to talk to several different chefs to make sure that they can accommodate me, that they understand my allergy, that they can work with it. So allergy and vegan, right? I'm not an easy person when I go to restaurants, but it is what it is. So can we go to the next slide, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
I was going to jump in, Karen, and just say that traveling with an allergy is pretty much the same as when you are a vegan, except for allergies are life and death. So it really is about making sure that you are 100% confident. So I like what you said about being your own biggest advocate. I think we both agree that if anything makes your spidey senses tingle, you need to follow up with that and make sure that you are 100% happy with the answers that you're getting. You're confident that you're speaking to somebody like the chef you had in Mexico who finally gave you some peace and went, okay, I know what we're doing here, but that you can't let your guard down. You are traveling to another country. So important, but I don't know how you're doing too, because traveling just as a vegan myself, it's challenging enough. I couldn't imagine if I had my own allergy.
Yeah, it's always been a bit stressful, and to be honest, that's why I haven't really explored all that much. But my trip to Italy showed me that it is possible. And again, it's all about the planning that you do ahead of time, and it's just about just going for it. I mean, we take risks every single day in life, right? And to me, the risk is worth it, because just sitting at home, not seeing all the beauty in the world, like that to me is just it's not, I don't want to do that anymore. And after my Italy trip, I got the traveling bug again. And yes, even during COVID times, I didn't even know if I was going to be able to go to Italy because of COVID. I had booked the trip 4 months in advance, and I just kept my fingers crossed and we were able to go. And yes, it was more stressful to travel during COVID, but 100% worth it.
And so, I remember how when you first came to me and we're chatting about your trip to Italy, how nervous you were about making that jump, and how it was a complete 180 when you came home and you were just like, this was the most amazing time ever. And I was just really happy that you were able to have that experience and see that you can travel with a severe allergy comfortably, safely, and explore parts of the world that I don't think you thought was possible.
For sure. And there's still some destinations that I'm not sure if I would be able to go. But again, it's all about working with the right partners and planning ahead as much as you can. So these are pictures from my travel adventures in Italy. We stayed in 3 different areas. So the first 2 places we stayed in both had kitchens. So, and this is going to be on my top 10 tips coming up, but I always rent places with kitchens so that I can prepare all my own food. Funny enough, the first place that we stayed at for 4 nights, I ended up not doing any cooking. And that's because I prepared well in advance and I was able to find places that could accommodate me. And not only accommodate me, but these places were places that had like a Michelin star. Like these places were gourmet, amazing, amazing experience. So I ate really, really well on this trip. So the first place we went to was in Sorrento, which is in the Positano and Amalfi Coast area. And that's where I went to like the really gourmet places. Like actually, if you go to the next slide, there's a picture, I think that's from there. No, so all of these pictures are pictures from my last part of the trip. I was staying with a vegan chef in Florence. She had a beautiful house up in the countryside, away from everything. And the food was phenomenal. So yeah, all this food was all made by her. It was a bed and breakfast, but so we had breakfast every morning, and then she prepared these beautiful sandwiches for me to take with me during the daytime. And then at the end of the day, we would come back and she would make us an amazing dinner. And like literally, this is the best food I've ever eaten in my life. Everything was fresh, everything was vegan, everything was amazing.
You're making me hungry.
Yeah, it was like out of this world. But with that being said, there was a little incident where and I'm the kind of person, and again, this is going to be my top 10 list, so I'm going to reiterate the really important things. To me, my life, I'm putting my life in someone's hands. So I'm not wishy-washy about it. I will ask someone at least like 2 or 3 times to confirm that what I'm about to eat is okay, because we're all humans. We all make mistakes. I've made mistakes myself. I've like a few times in my life, I've forgotten to check a label on something I bought. And then, and I've had a couple of reactions. Luckily enough, more often than not, I didn't actually eat it. I just bought something from the store, got home, and then I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot to read the ingredients. And then I look at it, I'm like, oh, sunflower, can't eat it. So it's all to say that like people make mistakes. Like we're not robots. Like, and that's just a reality. So you have to like really triple check everything. So the chef, I had communicated with her ahead of time about everything. I said, okay, so you need to check this, all the soy milks, you need to check all the butters, all the vegetable broths, because sunflower is hidden in so many things. So she was very good. She checked everything. And so before every meal, she would tell me, okay, so this is you're having, like, she would tell me what I was eating. And so everything was fine. Like I said, the food was freaking amazing. We even took a cooking class with her to learn how to make pasta in that dessert. The tiramisu is on the left here. So on the last day, she made me a cappuccino. And so when she brought it to me, she said, here's a cappuccino with almond milk. I'm like, oh, almond milk. I'm like, and I remembered that the other days when she brought me my coffee, it was made with soy milk or oat milk. And I know that most almond milks have sunflower in it. So when she said that, like my intuition was like, no, like something's not right. And so I asked her, I'm like, oh, this is the first time you're using the almond milk. Did you check it? And she's like, hold on, let me go check. And then so she goes to the fridge and she checks, she comes back and she's like, oh yes, it's fine. I'm like, okay, good. And I didn't drink it right away. And then literally like 30 seconds later, she comes like rushing back to me. She's like, actually, no, don't eat it. I checked, the sunflower is the last ingredient. And I was like, oh, my heart just dropped, because that was a very, very close call. And unfortunately, that can happen with no matter the amount of planning that you do, right? So that's why it's so important to listen to your intuition and just ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Like your life is, your life is in your own hands. So
It's
let's
not a time to it's not a time to be polite. It's a
yeah,
time to say, I'd rather err on the side of caution. Can you bring me the oat milk that I've had this week? Because I know that that's safe. I'd rather not try a new product.
exactly. And that's why you cannot be scared to speak up. You have to speak up. You have to, like, you can't mess around. And yeah, it's not the time to be polite, and don't worry about annoying people. Like, do not worry about that. Like, that's not important. Okay. So yeah, so it was a close call. Obviously, she felt really, really bad, but like I said, I've done the same thing. So, I wasn't too, like, I was upset, but not too upset with her. I understood. But yeah, so that's my Italy story. So if you could move on to the next slide. So I'm going to share my top 10 tips. Okay. So number one, again, plan ahead. Research the restaurants of where you're going and call them or email them. I have found this to be extremely effective. And by the way, this list is not in order of priority. Okay. It's not in any kind of order.
Or
So
exhaustive.
yes. Yeah. These are just like, yeah, there's so much more, but these are just like, for me, when I was preparing this, I was thinking about my trip to Italy and what I did for the planning. So, and this is actually the same thing that I do even when I travel locally. And this is the thing, like, even when you are going to a restaurant in your own city, it can be a nightmare. Okay. And I still do the same thing, whether I'm eating at a new restaurant in my own city or even 2 hours away or in another country. Okay. So I always do this. And so the reason why I really like doing this, especially when you're traveling to another country where English is not the first language, is that they will be able to actually read the email, and if they can't read it, they can ask somebody else to help them, right? Or they can use Google Translate or whatever. So I always email the restaurants ahead of time. And then what I do is I create a Google spreadsheet, which I can access on my phone and my computer, or sometimes I'll even print it out. I try not to print because you know how it is when you're traveling, you have a bunch of stuff. So having an electronic copy, I say, is the best, or even just taking a picture of your spreadsheet so that you have the list of places that you know are safe for you to go. So this is what I did in Italy, and that's how I was able to go to these amazing restaurants where, like, literally it's like a Michelin star, 4 courses. It was amazing. And these were not vegan restaurants. Like, I did not eat at a single all vegan restaurant. And that's the difference between going to, like, a small old place and a gourmet place like this. So definitely budget if you are traveling with allergies, budget to go to the more expensive places, because I felt the safest in these places where they really care about the food and the level of service is like top notch. All right. So yeah, make a list of the places. And what I did, this is the first time that I did this. I didn't do this in Mexico, and I don't know why I didn't even think about it, but probably if I would have done that, it would have helped me. So for Italy, I literally, I asked a friend who speaks fluent Italian, well, she's Italian, to translate for me. And it was basically an allergy card that explained that I was vegan, what vegan means, and explained about my allergy. And in there, I even wrote the typical things that contain sunflower that are very uncommon. So I know, like I mentioned before, the soy milks, the vegetable broths, dried fruit, they all have sunflower. So I specifically said that so that they would be aware. And let me tell you, that allergy card saved my butt so many times, because on the days where I was traveling through places that I didn't know of like a specific restaurant that I could go to where we were just walking around. I would go pull up my card and show them. And some of them are like, no, 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 no. I was like, okay, bye. And then I moved on to the next. Some of them would take the card and they would bring it with them to ask the kitchen. And then they would come back and they would say yes or no. And I could tell if the person like is not confident, like I walk away. I do not take any chances. I've literally sat down at a restaurant and have felt uncomfortable that they didn't really quite understand and have walked away. Don't be afraid to do that. Okay. You will see the difference between a restaurant that really, really cares, really takes it seriously, and where you feel confident. Okay. One of these really nice places that I just found randomly one day, they literally like took it to they took it back to the kitchen and they showed every single person in the kitchen. So it's not something you can do with your own phone, right? Like you wouldn't want to just give your phone away. So that's why having this printed card is fantastic. So I printed a few copies in case I lost some, and I laminated them so they wouldn't get all like messed up in the travel. And like I said, it was like I am never traveling without that anymore. So
Now, in terms of, we were talking just before we jumped on this session that let's say you don't have somebody who fluently speaks the language of the country that you're going to. Google Translate is really great as a starting place for it. I would say, you know, if you are in destination and you need to translate something really quickly for somebody, that's the route to go. But there are companies now that do offer services to translate allergy cards for you that they can either give you digitally so you have a copy of it, or like what you did, they will send you some laminated copies that you can use in different languages for where you're traveling. So I recommend it for clients with allergies all the time. Some of my vegan clients even create a vegan dietary requirement card that just specifies the things that they want, whether that's they don't want any oil, they don't want any salt, they're trying to go low fat. Like it doesn't just have to be for allergies. It really is for anybody who's got a specific dietary requirement that they just don't want to keep trying to figure out how to explain it to people.
yep. And in addition, like you said, they send you the digital copies, which is great. I also had a picture of it because there were a couple of times that I forgot my card. You know, that happens. So at least I always had a copy with me wherever I went. Number 4 is, like I mentioned before, rent a place with a kitchen. I know some of you, like, it's not always fun to have to cook when you're traveling, but you can use it as a backup. Like I mentioned, the first place I went had a kitchen. I didn't cook a single time. The second place I stayed at, I cooked one meal. I cooked one meal my entire trip in Italy. That I was shocked. I was fully prepared to have to cook like almost every day. So that was a really, really nice treat. But have that. And at the very least, if you can't find a place that has a kitchen or just too expensive, at least get a place that has a little mini fridge, because oftentimes when we went out to the restaurants, we had so much food that we had leftovers. So that's a big reason why I didn't have to cook as well, is that like I would bring back the leftovers and put them in the fridge. So yeah, even if you have a fridge, if you have just like a mini kitchenette, there's options, right? Number 5, bring snacks with you. I like I brought so many snacks to Italy, and guess what? I came back with almost half of them.
It's better to have more than you need because you don't know if you're going to end up somewhere on a day trip, or you're going to end up somewhere where you went to the grocery store and you don't like any of the snacks. I think it's a smart thing. You got to have a backup and a backup and a backup when you're dealing with a life-altering allergy, or if you're dealing with a dietary requirement that you don't know whether you'll be accommodated.
Exactly. And it's also, it saves you money, right? Because sometimes depending where you're going, snacks can be really expensive. So I brought Larabars, I brought nuts because I'm not allergic to nuts, just sunflower. I brought dried fruit. I brought like muffins that I had made ahead of time. Like I brought so much stuff. But again, it's better to have more than not enough. So
Totally.
yeah. And also what's difficult for me, the hardest part too is getting there, right? I will not eat food on an airplane like that they provide. I just will not, because yes, for some airlines you can request vegan meals, but I've never actually been able, especially now during COVID times, to actually get through to anyone on the phone to confirm about my allergies. And you know what? I don't want to risk it. So I bring my own food, and people are actually very, very surprised when they see the stuff that I travel with, that I go through customs with. I literally, and this is 100% true, I travel with ice packs with my food. And sometimes I get questioned and sometimes I don't. And if they question me, I just explain I have deadly food allergies. I have to bring my own food. And then they just like scan it through the special drug scanner. So yeah, I will literally bring like a big like lunchbox. So don't be afraid to do that. And I highly recommend doing that, because, and you know, airport food is expensive, like really expensive. Food on the airport, you know, on the plane is generally not very good. So I just bring my own stuff, and then I have really good food on my way there. So yeah.
The only thing I would also add with the airplanes is make sure that you bring some wet naps with you. Make sure that you clean down the areas around your seat. A lot of my clients who have allergies don't ever think about contact. Some of my friends have deadly nut allergy, where even if they come in contact with just the smallest little amount of oil, it could be a life or death situation. So making sure, again, that when you're bringing enough snacks for yourself, that you're bringing some personal care items. I think nowadays, in the world that we're living in, a lot of people are carrying sanitizing wipes where they go. But I make sure we wipe down the seats, make sure we wipe down the countertops. Planes, as much as they are cleaned and they're well maintained, sometimes things can be missed, and you know, people are touching seats, people are touching everything. So you really want to make sure that you're thinking about your safety, like you said, from the moment that you're leaving through the entire trip, not just thinking about the moments when you're at the Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so number 6 is research the place you're going and your allergies. So what I mean by that is, before, like, this was my first time in Italy. I didn't know how common sunflower seeds and sunflower oil were in Italy. So what I did is I started asking around, and that gave me information. So what everyone told me is that for and this is hard to believe, but it's true. So it's, and I actually know because they do this in Canada. So olives, you would think they're just suspended in olive oil, especially in Italy, right? But no, there's sunflower oil that is mixed with olive oil. So when I was doing my research, I was talking to these restaurants, I took the opportunity to ask questions. I said, "Oh, and can you tell me, like, your olives, is it pure olive oil or is it mixed in with sunflower oil?" And that's when I discovered that yes, in that most of the fried foods, they use sunflower oil because it's cheaper than olive oil. So yeah, even in Italy, they use sunflower oil. So I knew this ahead of time. So I made sure to not eat any fried foods because I did not want to take any chances, which is fine because I don't like fried foods anyways. But yeah, so just research where you're going and have like that you know, backup information in the back of your mind so that you can keep that into consideration. Number 7, Google Translate. Oh my gosh. I did not know about Google Translate. Okay. I don't know what rock I was living under, but I posted in one of my Facebook groups. I freaking love Facebook for this. Okay. When you're traveling, getting all the information you want. This is actually when I was searching for someone to help me with my allergy card. And they're like, just use Google Translate. I'm like, what? And then I download, and I know how to use it on the desktop for, like, you know, translating stuff. That's not what I mean, but I mean the actual app where you can do so much with it. So if you are not familiar with the Google Translate app, please go ahead and download it now, even if you don't have food allergies, okay? Because for the vegan thing. So there's different functions. One function is a scan function where you literally take a product and you scan you select the language that it's in and what language you want to translate it in. And on your phone in real time, it will show the ingredient list in the language that you select. My mind was blown. It works
It's
so well.
2022, Karen. Your mind shouldn't be blown. Things are developing and adapting for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you can try it at home to see how it works, but it was just like so amazing. So when I went to the grocery stores in Italy, I used my thing to see. So it does that one thing. And then the other thing that it does is it you talk to it, and then it plays an audio clip translated in the language that you want. So if you want someone to hear something, you go through the app, and then it records it, you press the button, and then they can hear it in their own language. Like, I was blown away.
Now, the only thing I add to the Google Translate app, just of note, is to make sure that when you are using sentences or you're typing things in or you're speaking into it, to try and be as clear and concise as possible. The only challenge I've found with Google Translate is there is a lot of localism, so to speak, where they use a bit of different terminology than what Google Translate might use, which is again why, if you can get someone to just check your work, or you can have some common phrases and common terms that you know relate to your personal dietary requirement or allergy, that you've double, triple check them before you've gone. Because I found sometimes when we use sort of Canadianisms and the way we speak up here in Canada, Google translates it and it has a completely different meaning in another country. So always make sure to just be as clear and concise in what you're saying into the app, so that way it's not going to be misconstrued, or the person's not going to understand what you're asking for.
Definitely, that's a great point. And number 8, we talked about this before, always be your own advocate. Triple check everything. Your life depends on it. Okay. So don't be wishy-washy. Don't be afraid of being annoying, please, like, take it, do whatever you need to do in order to feel comfortable. That really is my best advice.
Now, can I add a story in here, Karen?
Yeah,
is that all right?
please. Yes, of course.
My husband suffers from a severe nut allergy, and we did exactly what Karen did. We were going to Scotland and England, and they weren't speaking another language. So we really felt comfortable traveling with the allergy. We were doing all of the research. We had mapped out all of the restaurants we had wanted to go to. We had an amazing experience in Glasgow, and we didn't even need to struggle to find people understanding allergies, because the UK really does have that figured out. Now we went from Glasgow to Edinburgh, and we ended up in the city. We took a nice train ride to get there. We were really excited because we were told that we were going to go to one of the best local lunch places for allergy sufferers. And it was going to be an amazing experience. We had nothing to worry about. They were very clear. We arrived, and it was a bustling little basement sort of cafe style place that served tons of salads, and they served tons of sandwiches, and it was really a lovely place. We spent a lot of time going through asking for very clear ingredients on everything, and we made choices on our food. We felt confident in what we had picked. We sat down to eat, and my husband was eating a salad, and I looked down and I just went, "There's walnuts in that salad." He goes, "No, there's not. The person told me." We had asked, we were our own best advocate. And I made him stop after a couple of bites because I knew that there was walnuts in this dish. We called the manager over. It ends up being that the person behind the counter that served us mistakenly was looking at their chart and mistakenly read the wrong column and row for that salad ingredient and didn't realize that the salad that he had just served us was a nut, had a nut in it. So immediate panic. We ended up having to go and spend our first 6 hours in Edinburgh at the hospital just to be on the safe side. Luckily, again, we had travel insurance and we were in a country that had great medical coverage. But it was a very scary moment for us that we had done everything that we had hoped to do, and it didn't work out. So my recommendation is, even when that dish comes to you on your plate, take another look at it. Just make sure that you are 100%. I now ask again, does this dish have any nuts in it as it's being served to us, just to get that confirmation. And if your spidey senses are tingling, I know this is your number 9, Karen, but you got to trust yourself 100%. And like you said, don't feel like you are being a burden, because that company and yourself, you don't want to be in a situation where an ambulance is having to come to a restaurant and cart you away. The business doesn't want to have that. So it's better to just not accept that dish and say, maybe I'm not going to do it. Luckily enough, we had no anaphylaxis from the food. We caught it in time. They were able to help him out. But funny story, after we get out of the hospital, we end up at another restaurant that, again, we had vetted, we had thought would be wonderfully accommodating to allergies. And we sat down, and the moment that we sat down, we started asking questions, and the waitress kind of glazed over, went running back between the chef, and we just got so spooked, I think, because we were at the hospital, that we said, you know what? It's okay. We're actually just going to go find somewhere else to eat. We don't want to cause any undue stress. We just don't feel like everybody has the answers that we need. So, I 100% am all about being an advocate for yourself while in destination. Nobody else knows what your needs are apart from you. And no matter how much planning you have, something could be missed. So just take those extra steps and be confident. And I think most people with allergies have no problem telling people, I have an allergy, this is what it is. Just make sure the person listening to you is taking it seriously and understands how serious your allergy is. And if your allergy is more just a preference that you don't want the food, be honest with the person, because a deadly allergy is different than I'm not a fan of. And we don't want anybody thinking that people are, misusing that I have an allergy reason for needing to call out a chef. We should be using it those times when we actually do need that assistance.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And and that sucks. That's a terrible experience. And but it just goes to show, no amount of planning can this stuff can still happen no matter how much you do ahead of time. But with that being said, the reality is that can happen in your own city.
Yep.
So that's why I decided, I'm not going to let my fear stop me from traveling anymore. This could happen in my own house. This could happen at a restaurant here. And it sucks. It's really, really scary. But, you got to live life.
It's the other reason why I recommend to anybody traveling with a food allergy to ensure that you have great travel insurance. We have another talk that's already happened during the summit. If you haven't checked it out, please go check the replays. But we talk about the importance of travel insurance, and travel insurance saved us on this Scotland trip because we did not have to be out of pocket for anything. We were covered on the ambulance. We were covered getting to the doctor. When you're traveling with allergy, it's so important to make sure that you have backup plans like the kitchen, that you have your own snacks, but you also have the protection in place if you need assistance should something go awry.
For sure. And that's what I do. And that's, number 10, hire an expert like Jason. because he'll tell you about all those insurances. He will guide you in the right direction. He will do all his research of where you were going, and he will make darn sure that the place is safe for you, that they know what they're doing, that they're professional and all that stuff. Okay. Like I can't tell you how important it is to have someone, someone like Jason on your side helping you. I mean, traveling in itself can be stressful. Some people like really don't even like the planning part. But when you're traveling with allergies and vegan, it's so important to really get everything, like all your ducks lined up, and really get the support that you need to make it a fun experience, because traveling is fun, but it can be stressful. But it's about taking the steps to avoid as much stress as you can. So working with someone like Jason really does take the stress away. So I cannot recommend it enough. But yeah,
Now,
so
I will say, Karen, unlike most of my clients, you are very involved in the planning. And I think that's the other thing. There are some people who get really stressed out at the thought of having to piece this all together. Some of my clients are like, I just want to go away and I want to know I don't have to worry about it. And that's where what we do at Vegan Vacations is work with the clients to find out what is important to them. If they have an allergy, okay, what's the severity? Like we chatted about that the first time we connected. And then what I found is some of my clients, they like to get right in there and find those restaurants and contact them directly. So we give them suggestions on restaurants that we know may work, and they do the follow-up. And I have some clients who are like, I would prefer it if you would call, if you would handle all that. So we can do that depending upon how comfortable you are with that planning and whether or not you really want to be asking all of the questions. But the one thing we always tell our clients is making sure that before you go, you've got all the answers to the questions that you have in your brain, and that when you get into destination, like number 8 says, advocate, 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 and be letting people know even the best laid plans might not pan out like you'd thought. I was really looking forward to that Scottish meal, and we ended up having to leave it at that cafe because we couldn't enjoy it. And it was one of the most highest rated lunch places in Edinburgh at the time, and we had to miss out. So you just kind of have to pivot and continue to be your own advocate. But that's what we like to do here at Vegan Vacations, is act as your advocate before you leave. And should something go wrong while you're in destination, that we're there to help whenever we can.
for sure. And that's the thing, like my background is in event planning. So for me, I really enjoy the planning, and I'm organized, and it's somewhat easy for me. It's not that it's not stressful. It's just that I can do it. But yes, Jason can definitely help with all that kind of thing. But yeah, if any of you are going to Italy and you want restaurant recommendations for where I went, I would be more than happy to share them with you. And if you have any questions, like feel free to get in touch with me. And especially if any of you watching or anyone that is vegan and is allergic to sunflower, I would love to chat, because we could really support and help each other out. So thank you so much, Jason, for the opportunity to speak on this topic, because like I said, it's the first time that I speak about it, and it's such an important one. And I really hope that whatever your allergy is, that you won't let your fear prevent you from traveling, because traveling to me is everything, and it changes your life. It creates beautiful lifetime memories, and I can't imagine life without travel. So
My last little bit of advice, Karen, as well, because it wasn't on your top 10 list, but is making sure that once you've had an experience at a restaurant, is to contact them when you get home to let them know what the experience was like. Make sure to do it while you're in destination, but also make sure, and I don't recommend necessarily leaving a negative review if it was a bad situation, because that's not going to help change. I really think what we need to do is call those places back and say, hey, I came here, this is when I arrived. I had this allergy. We spoke before we arrived. I just wanted to give you a follow-up to let you know your team did amazing. Your team did okay. Here's where I think you have some opportunities. Because what I found is calling back one of those businesses, they really do want to do a great job for everybody. And the problem is they may not have ever experienced somebody with your particular allergy. So hearing how that experience was, you may be making it that much easier for travelers in the future that are going and visiting these spots. And that could be any place. It doesn't just have to be a restaurant. It could be if you've taken a tour and they've provided you with snacks, if you have gone to a hotel and they had in-room amenities, just giving that feedback to them really will affect that change. And you talk to a chef at a restaurant, and that chef they know what's going on in their restaurant. And if they get feedback in live real time, they are going to make changes. And if they're not, then these are places, if you get that experience that you're not being heard, that's when you go to the review. So just let everybody else know with an allergy might not be the place for them, because they're still working out how that works. But don't think once you've had the experience that's it, because you really do want to help others who are going to be in the same position as you.
That's a great tip, Jason. I'm really glad that you said that, because I definitely should go back and do that for the places I went in Italy, because I had such an amazing experience at these restaurants, and they really should get recognition for that. So thank you.
Yep, so much with allergy travel is very similar. Excuse me, with vegan travel, it's the same sort of research. As I say, it's just a difference usually between a life and death situation and being really uncomfortable or having, a stomach ache for a few days. But they're very similar in how you plan them, how you research them, how you experience them, and you have to adapt while you are in destination and what you should do when you're back home. This was a great chat, Karen. I'm really happy that we were able to do this. I don't think that we have talked about everything here, so I feel like we can do further deep dives on this topic, but I think it's a really great place to start. And I thank you for sharing your feedback and your tips. Did you have anything that you wanted to let everybody know about before we sign off?
Well, depending on when you are watching this, I am offering a free challenge. And the link should be right below on the right hand side, I believe. So go ahead and check that out there. And yeah, get in touch with me if you have any questions at all. You can follow me on Clubhouse at Karen Lang. I'm also on Facebook, and yeah, so thank you so much, everyone.
And make sure to check out Karen's other chat that we're having in this summit. We're actually talking about how to incorporate self-love and self-care into your travel rituals. We have a really great discussion about how to make sure that you're giving back to yourself in 2022. I think after the few years that we've all had, we can all use giving ourselves a little bit of love and a little bit of care. So check that out. Be sure to come back to this page if you'd like to watch a replay. This replay will be posted within 24 hours of the live recording and will be available until February 5th. And replays are available for everything that's passed. So if you see something that you missed, don't hesitate to sign up. It's still going to be there for a few more weeks. And thank you to everybody for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at the next session. Thanks, Karen.